Hello, everyone. So we will be starting super soon. And before that, please let us know from where are you joining in the chat. Hello, hi everyone. Good evening to each and every one of you. So, firstly, let me introduce myself. I'll be your host for today. I am Anushka Saxena, AWS Cloud Club Captain at AWS Cloud Club IIPS. And for this event, we are collaborating with another cool cloud club at Noida. And we have Abhishek, uh, who is an AWS Cloud Club Captain from AWS Cloud Club MAIT.
Hi everyone, Abhishek this side. As Anushka already told you, I am AWS Cloud Cup Captain at Maharaj Agnes Institute of Technology. Yeah, Anushka, thank you for introducing me.
So, okay. Oh, I see someone has joined us from Bangalore. That's cool. IIPS, School of Instrumentation. Wow. Okay.
Folks, can we have
Cool. So
AWS
many.
spam in the chat? It will be great if you can spam AWS in
Yes.
the chat.
Okay. So who's excited? Please put AWS in the chat. Awesome. Whoa, whoa, whoa. So many spans. Yes. This should be the level of Josh, right, people? So, getting into a little interaction with you all, let's do a Menti poll kind of thing. I am sharing the link in the chat, and also hope the screen is visible. The Menti one. Um, okay. So, if you are not familiar with how Menti works, just go to menti.com and enter this code, which is 6378 5195 link. Let's see what people like and what is a unique tech here. Okay, we can see cloud computing, machine learning, space science. Wow. And yeah, you can submit more than one response as well. It's not necessary that you only like one tech only. Web dev, okay, want to learn cloud. React, AWS, too much diversity in these topics. Great. Okay. Game designing, wow. This is something unique. Robotics, cybersecurity. So people who are writing Claudia, you are going to learn a lot today. And what do we have? Game development, okay. Java and DSA, okay. We have DSA people as well. Internet of Things, awesome.
DSA
Android,
is just every DSA is just everywhere. You cannot avoid DSA, right?
of course
Everywhere
we
you
cannot.
go, DSA will follow you. So yeah, someone is
These are
interested
just
in
two
cyber
people who are in
security.
their final year.
Oh, I guess. Someone is interested in VFX. Ah, nice. I hope
Cool.
you can do better at work than people who worked on Adi Purush. So yeah,
No comments. Okay.
controversial topic. Uh, I'm learning vector. Yeah,
Someone is disliking the question. If you don't like the question, you can suggest us the question as well. We don't mind that.
yeah.
Graphic designing, okay. We've got so many new things to see here. So much different tech that people are diving into right now. Okay. So shall we move on to the next question? Video production. Oh, let's get on to the next question. Okay. So what kind of sessions would you attend in future? What is your preference with the sessions that we'll be organizing in the club? You can, I think you can select more than one response here as well. Die between all of these. Okay. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Are you guys competing to do a tie between all these three options? Okay. Hmm. Well, people want hands-on session. So guys, if you're looking for hands-on session, you are at absolutely correct place. We will be having a very cool hands-on session as well today. Okay. So thank you so much for these responses, and this shows how interactive you all are. So a, a little about today's event. The AWS Launchpad event, as the name suggests, we are planning to help you get started with cloud computing and get to know more about how to get started cloud computing using AWS. So without any further delay, let's get straight into our event session for today. And we have our esteemed speaker for today, Mr. Ashish Prajapati. He is a senior technical instructor at Amazon Web Services, London. So I extend a very warm welcome on the behalf of both our Cloud Club, sir. And I would like to hand over the mic to you, sir, now.
Thank you, Anushka and Abhishek, for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you are audible.
Great. So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me for this particular session. It's a Saturday afternoon, little pretty good weather in London. We do not get lot of sun, but yeah, today is really nice weather, and I'm happy to be contributing here in your Cloud Club. Little bit about me. I am working in AWS as a technical trainer. I would quickly share my screen and then we will get started with the demo and other parts. But yeah, in between, if you have any questions, any suggestions, anything which is confusing you, let me know in the chat, and would be happy to look into chat and then uh, answer those questions at best of my abilities if I could. Quickly sharing my screen, and let me know when you see this particular screen. It should be visible to you now, hopefully. Is it coming up? Yep. Yeah. So my name is Ashish, and I work for AWS as a technical trainer. Uh, can you describe was in detail? I'm not sure what it was. You can ask questions. Yeah, that is fine. And yeah, I'm monitoring chat on a different screen. So sometime if I do not look at camera, if I look at this side, I'm probably looking for some questions in the chat. Now, I am native of Indore, and I worked in Indore for a while. Then I moved to Bangalore, then I moved to Dubai, and now I'm settled in London. I studied from Devi Ahilya University, and I completed my graduation from there, BSc Computer Science. I don't remember the year. Then I did my master's in English literature from there. I wanted to learn about literature, so did that, and now I'm full time into technical training. A bit about me. I worked into different profile as a senior consultant for QA, systems engineer, network engineer, and apart from my day job, I also run a few training sessions through Analogies Cloud. That is my website. So you could find more details there, where I have published few books on Amazon, some of the video trainings which I have created, some drag and drop exercises. So you should be able to find a lot of resources, and I am available on LinkedIn. So if you want to get in touch, just say hi. Feel free to do that. Should not be a problem. So I'll quickly brief you on what we are going to discuss. I'll talk a little bit on the cloud computing first, and then I'll show you a quick demo that how easy it is to get started. We could talk about different demos depending on whether you want to see a demo for storage or compute or networking. So once we reach to that point, I will check with audience that what you want to look into, and based on that we would be driving that discussion. So feel free to ask your question, should not be a problem. Any particular passion you pushed apart from your field work pursued? No, I was pretty boring person apart from technology, I would say like that, Papa Bolt. So I am not a very person who is people talk like to connect to. I am mostly into technology. If it is technology, I would be happy to discuss. Other than that, I'm not a very active person. So let's keep moving forward. I'll talk in very basic term first what is AWS, and then we will go into details of understanding this concept in detail. So let's go ahead and talk about what is cloud computing first. I prefer to explain things through analogies, some real life concept which you can relate to technology. So let's go ahead and talk about that first. I'm showing a picture on the screen. Hopefully, all of you can see it. Can you tell me what this is happening here? What this screen may be representing? Any random guess if you have what is happening here? If you look at it, looks like a very big machine and looks like here is a person doing something. So obviously it is a huge machine or a room where a lot of machines are there. We are discussing that. What this could be representing? Looks like very old photo and not something which is a very recent time. Looks like very old thing. Heavy machines, I agree on that, and that is heavy machines. Sanidhya, that's agree. What is happening here? Any random guess you have? What is actually happening here in this case? I'll give you some ideas so that you could relate to where I am taking this discussion into. You would be able to relate these concept in a minute, like why I'm talking about this machine. Maybe a supercomputer backend server. Parag, it could be, I don't know. But what I know about that, it is not storage also, Pavan. This is how electricity was produced. So 100 years ago, if you wanted electricity, it is not at all computing. It is not at all computing. It is not ship also, Rahul. It is a electricity generation system. So probably in a dam where we have a lot of water coming up, from that electricity is being produced, or it could be a steam power by which electricity is being produced here. So 100 years ago, every electricity consumer built and maintained their own power station. We did not had liberty to switch on and then get electricity. If 100 years ago you needed electricity, you had to set up these type of plants in your environment to get started with. That was very, very complicated. So anyone who wants to use electricity, that is complicated. First challenge is initial cost. You would need to spend a lot of money to get these things ready, get this thing started, and that is a huge investment required for that. Second, it would require a lot of ongoing maintenance too, because it's not like one time done and you do not need to worry at all about. You may have to perform a lot of maintenance on that, and that would be little complicated for every single business to set it up. Nobody would have that much of money. If I'm just a household, probably I may not want to go into that case. So that was a complicated structure of electricity distribution in early days. But if we look at today, we do not worry at all about all these things. We just press a button, and that button would be just to light a bulb, or it could be to light the whole industry, or to power up the whole industry, or it could be to power up the whole city. That's how we have started actually. So idea is that we have come a long way from manufacturing electricity in those traditional methods, and now we have come up here. So we have done a lot of journey here. And the good part is here everything is pay as you go kind of a model. So you pay only for the resources you use. If you use more resources for a while, you would pay more money. If you are using less resources, you would be paying less resources in that case. So that's how it would be happening. uh, so idea is that we are paying it as a utility pricing. So if I talk about Europe or UK, we have winters. So when we have winter, we have to heat up our houses, and that's where we have to pay money in terms of electricity bill. But when there is a summer, we do not need that heating, and that time the pricing would be lower for my electricity bill, which is coming up every end. So I hope this thing is clear. Give me a minute. I'll just draw the curtain so that it would be easier, and it will the sun would not shine on my face. So hopefully this should be better. Okay. Moving forward, what we are trying to talk here, it is cloud. Why Ashish is talking electricity? So let me relate it. So let's compare how things work. So somewhere electricity generation is happening if I'm talking about today's world. We don't care who and how it is being generated. We are generating electricity. That could be hydropower, that could be solar power, that could be wind power, that could be biofuel, whatever mechanism is. And once this electricity gets generated, it has to be distributed, because this would be happening in a very far place. And now what we are doing, we are distributing this electricity. This distribution would be then reaching out to consumer, and consumers would start consuming this electricity. This is how electricity works. Cloud is no different. In cloud, somebody has created resources for you. Those resources could be in terms of storage, could be terms of your compute power, could be load balancer, could be firewall, could be security. And once you have these resources, you want to access these resources or provide these resources to a user. So what we would be doing, we need a distribution mechanism. And for cloud, the distribution mechanism is internet. So we deliver all our services over internet, and once my service is delivered over internet, then my consumers or users can start utilizing it. And that's how we started using cloud computing. So there is some resources somewhere. So here we could see that there are lot of resources available, and those resources are delivered to consumers through internet, and companies like AWS is supporting this type of distribution of resources. So that is on a very high level what cloud computing is. Okay. If I go ahead and talk about a little formal definition, I would put it like this. So cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources over the internet with pay as you go pricing. I use a resource, I pay for it. I do not use a resource, I do not pay for it. And that resource could be a software, could be an infrastructure, could be a database, could be a server, could be a container. It depends. But idea is somebody is hosting those resources for me, and I am just consuming those resources when I am looking for. So instead of buying and owning and maintaining physical servers, we are just leveraging those services to get started. That's what a basic idea of cloud computing actually is. So I hope this thing is clear and you have a better understanding. Now if I go into a little bit further definition, official definition of AWS, here is a link where we can talk about what is cloud computing, who is using cloud computing, what are the benefits, elasticity. All this information is being displayed here. So I hope its idea is clear that what is cloud computing and why I may be using it. Right. Now, if I go further into cloud, that what a cloud is actually made up of. So I would say cloud is made up of two things there. First thing is virtualization. Probably you know a little bit on the virtualization side. Virtualization is an abstraction. So through virtualization, I am able to run multiple servers, maybe run multiple container, maybe run multiple storage units. So that is a virtualization is making up the cloud. Second thing, which is made up of is automation. So automation and virtualization, when they are combined together at a large scale, that is where we will be getting cloud. That is the main idea of it. So large scale virtualization and automation delivered by a company is providing the baseline for me to get started as a cloud computing platform. I hope everyone is following along so far and understanding what we are discussing. If you have any question, put them into chat and I would be happy to answer them. So that is the basic of cloud computing. Now let's focus on how AWS came into picture. AWS started by Amazon. Amazon, probably everyone knows that they are into online marketplace and there are a lot of services they offer. Probably somebody has bought books from some places and all. So that is all what Amazon was. Now Amazon is a e-commerce business, and once they realize that their e-commerce platform cannot scale, they cannot host their website properly, then they started looking for a solution, and that's how AWS was born, Amazon Web Services. So it is a cloud platform. It is publicly available from 2006, so it's not like 100-year-old platform. It is just like few years back, 15, 20 years back, this has started. So publicly available from 2006. Then it has global presence. So wherever you are in the world, if you have access to internet, you could connect to this platform, should not be an issue. There are 200 plus services available, so you should be able to access these services and then perform operations you are looking for. Like if you are using Netflix, you are using AWS behind the scenes somehow. If you are using maybe Amazon Prime, you are using Netflix at behind the scene, AWS behind the scene. So this is how services are being delivered, and then companies use these services to build their own platform. Like if you talk about Airbnb, Airbnb is using their infrastructure on AWS and delivering services to their customer. You talk about companies like Lyft, like Uber, there is a company called Lyft, they are using AWS, and there are thousands of customers who are using AWS as a service. Pricing is utility based, so you pay only for what you consume, you do not pay for unnecessary resources. And probably you are not able to see it because my screen is in the front, but idea is it is have free tier to get started, so you could go ahead and start experimenting it without paying a lot of money. You just register in a free tier account and you could go ahead and get started from there. Right. So let's keep moving forward. Let's talk about why companies use AWS. What is the benefit we are using? How does AWS generate Amazon 40% revenue? Why people only use it? Isn't there some alternative for it? I'm not saying there are not alternative here, Samarth, but consider that maybe the services which Amazon is offering is much better than the competition, right? So probably because of the service depth and service breadth, they are having a lot of customer base. So if let's say why I use Uber or why I use Netflix, why I use Amazon Prime, I feel easy to use them. I get required content in that, I get quality content on that, so I would look for it. Is there no other platform than Netflix or Amazon Prime? There are, but probably I'm not looking into it because whatever I'm looking for is being delivered by the platform provider, so I may not be looking for an alternate solution based on that. So there are competition, there are different products available and services available, but it purely depends on depth or the resources. Think of an example why we all have started going to supermarket for shopping. Why we started going to supermarkets? Because there we get everything. If you remember, like in previous time, you would have specific markets. So if you want to buy clothes, you will go to a different market. You want to buy vegetables, you will go to a different market. You want to buy electronics, you will go to a different market. But now we don't want to go and invest our time into individual places. We go to one supermarket, and that is where we get all the services in one roof, and that makes things easier for us, and that's why supermarket culture is becoming popular. So I'm saving time, I am getting everything under one roof. So why I should be going into different places? Probably that is the reason why AWS is becoming that popular. Okay. Moving forward, why a customer may be looking for cloud computing? So there are advantages cloud computing offers. First thing is you do not have to make investment into getting these resources. So you should be not having any additional capital expenses. Capital expenses is I have to invest money to get my infrastructure. That is not required here. Second, you get benefited from economy of scale. I'll quickly explain what we mean by this particular point. So what AWS has a culture, AWS reduces price of the services. So if AWS is reducing price of a service, it would mean more customer would be inclined to use the services of AWS. If more customers are using AWS services, that would mean overall usage of AWS would go higher, and then we would be needing more infrastructure to support that need. So if they are having more infrastructure requirement, they can benefit from economies of scale. Let me give an example. So let's say you decided you want to buy 100 server for your application or for your company. Fine. You would go to a vendor, Dell, IBM, HP, and negotiate a deal that, hey, we want to buy 100 server. Can you give us a discount? So maybe give you a discount of 10%. When AWS is buying these resources, maybe they are trying to buy 10,000 servers. Obviously, that mean they would be getting better discount from the service provider, and that discount cannot be just only in terms of physical servers. It could be power pricing cheaper. Maybe AWS can set up their own power plant. Maybe they can set up their own cooling facilities for data center. Maybe they can run data center where it is cheaper to run, and that's how they are able to keep their operating cost low. And if the operating cost is low, they can deliver the same services into a cheaper layer or cheaper discounted format, and that would mean cost of infrastructure is lower, and that would mean prices are reduced. So this is a cycle, and all of the customers would get benefited automatically by this cycle of economies of scale. So I hope this thing is clear. Which cloud from I choose to get started? I can't answer that question, Vaibhav. It depends on your interest. I would say what interests you, and then you should be thinking about like what is the scope of that platform. Like in some part of the world, maybe a cloud platform X is more popular, or in the parts or companies you want to target to work for, maybe platform X is popular. So they check for that. What you should be looking into, there is a report published by someone called Gartner. So Gartner is a well-known name into technology. Whatever they publish report, that is unbiased report, and they clearly mention that who is a leader in a specific technology. Is it AWS? Is it other vendor? So not just computing or not just cloud, maybe on-prem data center, maybe backup solution, maybe chat services. So Gartner's report are considered to be a standard mechanism for understanding what are the best possible option on that. So if you want to target IoT based companies, probably check that who is IoT leader in terms of their market share. And if it is AWS or any other vendor, probably you should look for it, right? So Gartner report are considered as a de facto standard when you want to understand who has market leader. All right. So that is benefit of economies of scale. Next, you would be able to get benefit from not worrying about capacity. When we launch an application, so let's say I decided I would be needing two server, and these two server would be able to handle 100 users workload for me. Fine. What if my application becomes popular, and instead of 100 user I get 10,000 users coming to my application? Obviously my two server cannot handle that load, and then I have to at very last moment go and buy a new server, set it up. It's not that easy. So that will take time, and by that time maybe my users are unhappy and they leave my website. They do not want to use it at all. So that is a problem with all the deployment we do, that we are not aware about how much capacity we need to plan for. So that benefit is with cloud. The cloud does not worry about whether you need 1 or 10 or 100 or 2000. Cloud would be able to provide you that, right? So let's say you have invited 5 guests at your home, you cooked food for them, and now there are 10 guests showing up. Obviously you do not have sufficient resources right now. You may need to prepare the food again, and it may take little time. But consider you invited these 5 guests into a restaurant. Restaurant is already equipped to handle multiple guests. So if it is come 5 or 10 or 50 or 100, probably restaurant has already figured out that how they are going to serve these customers. So that would not be a problem at all for them. They know how to scale and what capacity they have to plan for. So that's how cloud is also ensuring that you do not have to worry about the backend mechanism, and we take care of all the backend required for you. Another benefit is it will help you to increase your speed and agility. Now you have written a, let's say, a good piece of code. You want to host it on a website. I don't want to buy a server. I can go into cloud, get a virtual server and host my website faster. I like it, keep it running. I do not like it, destroy it and start looking for another solution. So that's how we will be getting agility and speed with cloud based services. And then focus on what matters for you. So let's say you are more interested in IoT. So you focus on IoT. You do not worry about how the backups are performed, how you would be ensuring encryption on your services, how you would be scaling your services. This is not your focus. If I'm a programmer, I want to write the best line of code. I don't want to invest time in configuring a server, installing operating system, installing a patches. So I would be worrying about only what matters to my business. That is the benefit of cloud. And the last benefit is you could go global in minutes. AWS has application hosted all over the world, and you could go ahead and deploy your application from any part of the world, should not be an issue. So I hope this has given you a better idea on what is cloud computing and why companies may be looking for cloud computing. If you are following along so far, give me a +1 in the chat, and then we'll go on to the next topic. If you have question, put that also. Otherwise, give me a +1 in the chat, and we will quickly get started from there. Okay, I'm getting some responses. Thank you, Nishant. Thanks, Shivam, Anushka, Abhishek. Okay, Pawan. Thank you. Priyanshi, Divya, Harshita, Samarth. All right, good. Let's keep moving forward then. Anytime you have question, feel free to put them into chat and I would be happy to answer those questions. Should not be an issue. And afterward also you should be able to reach out to me. Should not be a problem. Now I'm changing little bit of my slide so that I could address the required services for you, and then we will go into the more detail of that. So what AWS is offering you, AWS is offering you various type of services. How AWS services are tied together, let me bring that information to you first, and then we will go into the detail of it. So what AWS has done, AWS has set up something called global infrastructure. All over the world, AWS has set up the required resources, and those resources can be accessed by you whenever you need it. If I give you a simple example, let me open AWS console. This is referred as AWS management console. So I come here after logging into console.aws.amazon.com, and what I see is the browser interface by which I can interact with AWS services. What I'm seeing here, that these are different regions available to me: US East Ohio, Asia Pacific, Mumbai, Tokyo, Sydney, Ireland, London. These are physical location where AWS has hosted their infrastructure. These are called AWS global infrastructure. So this global infrastructure is the physical presence from which you could run your application. So there are 32 regions all over the world. Then there are availability zone and 550 point of presence. As you see, these all dots are representing different location, like Mumbai launched in 2016, Hyderabad launched in 2022. So these are the places where I could go and start hosting my application if I need to. So that is the base of AWS called global infrastructure. Once this global infrastructure is ready, what you would need on top, you would need some foundation services, right? Consider that you want to set up a city. Just giving an example. So in that city, you need to take care of basic infrastructure thing, right? If you want people to live here, you need to take care of water, electricity, heating arrangement, cooling arrangement. That is a road, hospital. These are the basic infrastructure. And then once this basic infrastructure is set up, you would need to set up some foundation services. So when these people would be joining here, they would be needing some places to go. So maybe you will set up some park in that city. Maybe you would set up some hospital for them to handle any medical emergency. Maybe you would set up some cinemas so that they could go and entertain themselves. So those are basic foundation services I'm expecting. Same is true for cloud. Cloud, once your global infrastructure is ready, in that you could start hosting your foundation services, and we could divide them into three categories: compute, networking, and storage. Compute is whenever you have to perform any processing of the data. That processing could be as simple as doing a 2 plus 2 equal to 4 calculation. That processing could be performing a credit card transaction. That processing could be performing a login into a NASA's website, whatever it is. So that is processing. Networking is when your systems are communicating with each other. Like currently from your laptop, you are accessing a live feed that is again happening over network. So networking is an important aspect. And whatever data we are collecting, we have to store it. So any application I am building, I would need three core component on that. One is compute for processing, network for connection, and storage for retention. So these are called foundation services of AWS. And once this foundation is ready, on top of it, you should be able to add more platform like databases, analytics, application services, deployment, and more services like DevOps or IoT, or you want to go in security. So all these can be added, but this is what a foundational service would actually be looking like. So I hope this thing is clear by so far, that you have a better idea on how the stack looks like. So AWS takes care of this basic stuff for you. They have set up everything for you, and now you would be going ahead and setting up your foundation services on top of it. Afterward, you would be setting up your platform services, right? So like if you are talking about a university has set up a basic infrastructure. So a college can register into university will provide them recognition, will provide them resources, will provide them registration facilities, and then those colleges can be running their own courses approved by university, obviously. And within those colleges, probably you have formed things like club. So those are like platform where you can connect with people. Foundation services like cloud, your college has already provided with your networking, with your Wi-Fi services, with your computer labs, and the university has provided the global infrastructure for it. So I hope this thing is clear now. That was a theoretical aspect. Now I want to show you some demos on the console so you understand how easy it is to get started. I want to take your poll here, like what we should be focusing on. And if everyone is okay, Anushka and Abhishek, if you are okay with that, we could take audience poll, and from there we could go into either compute, networking, or storage. Or if you want me to focus on a specific thing purely based on your own session which are scheduled in future, I would be happy to go for it. So let me know if you feel. I think we discussed about Amazon S3 here, but if you want me to change, I would be able to change it. Otherwise we would go with Amazon S3. If you could help me here, then we can decide and move forward. Okay. Okay, I will keep then Amazon S3 itself. So we will first focus on the storage concept, and then maybe in the next sections we can discuss about compute, networking, or other sections. So let me focus on the storage services first. Okay. Any questions, anyone so far before I go into storage? Anything which is not clear, please let me know. If everything is clear, give me an indication, say yes, clear, and then we will move forward. Otherwise, I'll wait 2 minutes for any questions you may have. Clear, Shivam, thank you. Let's keep moving forward. So let's keep moving forward and talk about storage-based services. Okay. So I'll explain you what different type of storages are, and then we'll see a quick demo to explain you how we would be using these storage services. So the first, I want to explain you about the two common type of storages we have. Okay, give me a minute. I'm bringing up another slide so that we can get started from there. So we are talking about different storage options available into cloud. Now we talk about technical details first. So I'll explain you basic concept and then we will see implementation side of into cloud. So what we have here, we have three common type of storages which are used, and it is not just specific to AWS. In overall IT, we have three type of storages which are called block storage, which is called file storage, and which is called object storage. So these three storages are very common fundamental block of whatever you store, right? Let's take an example so that you could relate these things easier. Consider you got a piece of land. Now on this piece of land, what I could do, it is my piece of land, I bought it. I could go ahead and create these type of structures on it. I could say I would use it to build a garden, then I would keep some open space, then I would have a building where I would be staying, and I would keep some space for my parking. So what I did, I actually partitioned this space into different areas and I am consuming it as per my own requirement. Now, I may change my requirement and I could say, hey, I don't want to keep garden in that area. Garden should be removed from here. It should be shifted here. So this is going to be garden and this is going to be my parking area. This is my piece of land. I need more open space. I need more space for building. It is purely up to me because it is my piece of land. I could logically divide and use it as per my requirement. So keep that analogy at back of your mind and we will discuss this in detail. Second type of storage is file storage. Take an example that you are living into an apartment. So if you're living into an apartment, so this is your apartment, near to that there would be another apartment, near to that there would be another apartment. Now, if I am inside this apartment in my living room, I may go ahead and say I want to change color of my walls, no problem. I may say I want to change the carpet on my floor, no problem at all. Maybe I want to have a marble dining floor created, I could go ahead and do that. So I am allowed to make changes within this environment of mine, but I cannot say, hey, let me break this wall and create a door here, because it would be interfering with someone else. I cannot say from here I would create a door into someone else's home. That is not right. So that is not allowed. So an apartment gives me space, but it is my space on which I can modify. I cannot make modifications like let me break this wall or let me change the way the plumbing work. That is not allowed. So that is what you are having an apartment kind of availability. Third type of storage is object storage. Object storage is this may not be very commonly used in India or in some cities in India, but idea is that in some places where people do a lot of travel or they have less space available into their house, they rent these type of storage unit. It's like a go down sometimes we call in India. So in this type of places, I could go ahead and store whatever I need and I would pay only for the time I want to keep it. If I give you my example, 5 years back, I moved from Dubai to London. I did not had a house in London that time. So what I did, I packaged my all stuff in Dubai, hosted it into a platform like this, kept it there for 2 months. And once my house was ready in London, I asked them to ship it back to me. So what I did, I just stored my object there. I just stored some data so that I could access it later. Please give me a minute. There is someone at my door. I will be just back in a minute.
Guys, please feel free to share any of your questions, any of your doubts in the chat. And thank you for all the excitement.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that. Yeah, I was expecting a parcel, but yeah, it got delayed. So I'm back now. All right. So hopefully this thing is clear that there are three ways to keep your stuff. First one is a block storage, second is a file storage, and third is a object storage. Let's see how it manifests into technical terms, how we will understand it in technology. Let's talk about that. So when I'm talking about a block storage is a block like a unit of transaction, there is a block. If you got a hard disk, like if you are using a laptop or a desktop right now, you have a hard disk. On that, either you have a Windows based operating system, some of may you be using Linux based operating system, some of you may you be using Mac OS based operating system. So what we have here, this operating system has taken control of your hard disk, and on that hard disk they have formatted and created something called a block storage. So through this block storage, they are able to store data on that hard disk. So in block storage, transaction is block, file storage it is file, object storage is file with metadata. So we store file and create a metadata associated with it. Example here is my laptop disk. If you partition it into C drive, D drive, that is your block storage. If you are connecting to a Windows share, sometime in your college, you may say, let me connect to a specific server. There I have a folder, and on that folder, I have my own data. So I could access it from there. That is called my file storage. On the other hand, object storage is if you ever use devices or services like OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox, these are all example of your object storage. Okay. Now, once you have this type of storage, what you would use it for? So when you are trying to update a block storage, how the operation is carried out, let's say consider this is your hard disk. Now, on this hard disk, I have my CV or a file stored. I want to update something on that CV. So what I cannot do, I cannot directly go to that hard disk and make modification. What I would be having an operating system in between Windows, Linux, whatever. And on top of that operating system, I would have a program, let's say MS Word, and on top of it, I would open it and then modify it. Now, Word doesn't know how hard disk functions. Word just says, okay, you edited something, you changed some detail of the new company or modified whatever in your CV. I would tell my operating system to store that. Operating system controls the hard disk and then it is able to store the data. So Word or PowerPoint or Excel, they do not know how hard disk works. They just talk to the operating system and operating system takes care of putting that data. And that's why we can directly upload the file should not be a problem. Object storages are a little different. You cannot directly upload files, update files here. So be aware, you cannot update files directly or objects directly. What we mean by that? Let me give you an example so it would be easy. Let's go back to the picture we were seeing. See this one. Now, if you look here, there is a box inside this storage unit, right? I want to get something out of it. Now there is no space here where I can open the box. So what I have to do, I have to get this box out, open it, remove whatever I wanted or add whatever I wanted, and then push it back again into storage unit. So what I cannot do, I cannot directly edit the content of my object. I have to download it first, modify, and then upload it. That's how object storage actually works. So in object storage, there is no direct edit command. Either you replace the object or you create additional objects if the need be, but you cannot directly go ahead and edit that object. You can create versions of the object if the need be. So I hope this thing is clear. And when it comes to accessing these storages, then there are different protocols used, like block storage is accessed over SCSI, fiber channel serial ATA, SMB, CIFS, NFS is done through file storage, and then we have object storage, which is accessed over REST, HTTP, HTTPS. So this is how your protocols are used to access your cloud services or any object storage. Remember, so far I have not talked about cloud. It is just a general introduction of storage. We will talk about cloud in a minute. Metadata is additional information which you can add. Like if you have, let's say you have a notebook. On notebook, you could say subject computer science. So this is additional information. Now it's not going to change the content of my notebook inside, but I have just added a extra information, or you put a sticker on that box which says this contains sugar, this contains salt. So that is what we mean by metadata. Additional information we are adding with the object. So I have stored a photo, and with that photo, I may have additional information like the resolution of the photo. Maybe I would know the size of the photo. Maybe I would have DPI, dots per inch information. So that is all what we can think of a metadata information. Right now, If I talk about how AWS offers you these services, so AWS offers you all three type of storage is block, file, and object. For block storage, the storage offered is EBS and instant store. For file, it is called EFS and FSX, and then for object, it is called Amazon S3 and Glacier. So what we are going to discuss now is service called Amazon S3. So I hope this thing is clear. You got a better understanding on different storage types. So we discussed about cloud, we discussed about different storage types, and now we would be focusing on Amazon S3 as a service. Any question, anyone so far? Any doubts? Anything which is not clear? Let me know before we move on to the next topic of Amazon S3. Can anyone respond to me if you are still with me, or if you got bored and had to drop? That's completely fine. But if you are still with me, just let me know and we will then get started. I'm waiting for someone. Okay, Nishant, thank you. Thanks for confirming. All right. So let's keep moving forward. Let's talk about the next topic. Parag, thank you. Let's move forward. So what I'm going to discuss now is talking about Amazon S3 basics. Amazon S3 is a service. Its full form is Amazon Simple Storage Service. As its name says, it is the simplest way to store your data, and that is what we are going to discuss here. In the short form, we call it S3, but actual name for this service is Amazon Simple Storage Service. Let's see what we need it for and how we would use it. So to get started with Amazon S3 service, you need to access either console or a command line. So it depends whether you want to use a command line to interact with that, or you want to use a different way of communicating with this. So let me show that both the ways to you in a minute. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to log into a AWS console where I should be able to see these services. So I am bringing up that console to you. So this is my console home US West. Console is the browser interface by which I would be interacting with the services. And the good part is you could come here and say, hey, I need storage, type storage, and it will tell you all the services which has something to do with the storage. So as you could see here, I have plethora of services which can help me with storage. There are 24 results coming from it. I am interested in this service which is called Amazon S3. It says scalable storage in cloud. What we mean by scalable, that you do not worry about what is the capacity of it, you just dump as much data as you want. So if you have a pen drive, a USB drive, or a memory card, you have a limit of how much you can store on that. Amazon S3 says you do not worry about it. You have 1 GB of data, 100 GB of data, 10,000 GB of data. We should be able to provide you that information and store your information. So that is all possible. So Amazon S3 would take care of that. So I'm going into Amazon S3. Now, the fundamental unit to use Amazon S3 is called a bucket. What is a bucket? Think of it like a folder. So in our Windows machine or in your Mac or Linux machine, you create a folder. That folder may have your CV, may have your document, may have your programs, may have your photos, and in that folder we then create files. Similarly in S3, we first create something called a bucket, a logical entity, and within that bucket then we store object which you could think relatively as a file. So bucket is the placeholder, and within that bucket, we would be creating objects if the need be. So let's go ahead and first create a bucket. You cannot directly store object. You need to first create a bucket. If you see here in my account, I'm logged in as a user called admin underscore ash, and I have 30 buckets in total, as you could see. Now, what I did, I just came into S3 console and I can see all the buckets which are visible to me here. The same information can be accessed from command line too. So if I have configured that command line access, so I'm coming here, and from here, I could go ahead and issue a command AWS, which I'm invoking AWS command. S3 is the service name, and I say ls, which is list all the buckets. So if I go inside it and run this command, it would again display me the same information but in command format now. So if you look at demo, rquiz, c4 gen 7, these are all the bucket name which are present here. As you could see, these are all ash quiz, ash demo, all the c4 gen 7. These are all the buckets which are hosted. Now What I can do in this bucket, let's first create a bucket. So when I'm creating a bucket, I have to give it a unique name. So if I'm trying to create a bucket called demo into US West 2, I would be getting error probably. If I go ahead and say, hey, I want to create a bucket, it will give me an error and will say bucket with name already exists. So what I need to do, I need to ensure that I am using a different name which is unique. So Cloud Clubs, and let's call it 23092023. So probably that would be unique. And when I'm creating a bucket, I have to specify which specific region it would be storing your data into. So I could select any of these regions to get started with. I have kept few regions disabled. That's why they are not being displayed to me. Otherwise, you could have selected, let's create this into Mumbai. And once I'm happy with that, I would go ahead and say, all right, create my bucket. There are more settings associated with that. We do not have time to discuss every single setting, but right now I am removing this setting which says block all public access because I want to make it a public bucket in a minute. Public bucket is something which you want people to share data from. So I could go ahead and say create a bucket. So I have created a bucket. Once a bucket is ready, what I could do then, I could go ahead and put my objects inside it. Object could be anything. It could be a file, it could be a photo, it could be image, it could be folder, doesn't matter. You could go ahead and add any type of file folder in that case if the need be. So what I'm doing here, I am adding some files here. So I could go ahead and let's say this is my file which I have stored 00 week 02.png, and I could say upload. So what happened now, this file has been uploaded into Amazon S3 bucket. What Amazon S3 did now, behind the scene, it has created three layer of storage for me. What we mean by that, let me try to draw that to you. So for you and me, I have just one file which has been stored. I would use file and object as the same thing as of now. So I stored one object into an Amazon S3 bucket. Done. My file has been uploaded. I got a confirmation. What Amazon S3 did behind the scene, it had created three copies of my data. So that same file which I have uploaded, that file has now got three copies, and these three files are stored, or three copies, let me call it copy 1, copy 2, copy 3, and these are stored into different physical location but within Mumbai itself. So this is a Mumbai region. My bucket exists into Mumbai region, and in Mumbai region, AWS has multiple data center. Let's say this one is in East Mumbai, this one somewhere into Central Mumbai, this one is into West Mumbai. So physically, at three different places, my data has been stored. Why three copies? Idea is that if there is a network outage, if there is a corruption, or if there is a power outage, or a flood, or a tornado, maybe one copy is not available to me, but I could still access my object because it has been delivered from other copies. So that's what we are seeing here is called durability. So it has durability, which is called 11 nines of durability, which translates to 99.1234567891011% of durability. If somebody quantifies that, that comes out to be that if you have stored 1 million objects into S3, maybe over a period of 10,000 years, one object may get lost. May. It's a very low probability, but still we have that probability. So durability we offer here is called 11.9 durability. Durability basically means retention, how long your object would be kept. So even if one copy is gone, second copy is gone, still your object would be available. All three objects getting deleted is rare. It may happen, but very rare. Probability is very low, as you could see here. So this is called durability. So everything you store in S3 by default gets copied into three location. So you could access that object anytime if you need to be. So hopefully this thing is clear that what we have done, we just stored a 3.8 MB file, but behind the scene, it all had been copied to a different destination, right? Okay, same command which I have done through UI, I could go ahead and do the same with different mechanisms. So what I have here, I have a static website. I have a static website here. And if I look into this, I have some files inside. These are like about.html blog file, and then checkout index file, images file, and all. I could go ahead and use this file also. So I could go ahead and say AWS. Let me clear the screen so that I could show you what I'm doing. I want to copy all these file into Amazon S3 bucket we just created. So I will go ahead here and say AWS S3, that is invoking S3 service. I want to do CP. CP stand for copy. What files? This file. Where? I want to dot here representing all files. Here I want to copy into S3. And what was the bucket name I had? Let's go back and get that bucket name. If you remember, my bucket name was Cloud Clubs 23092023. So I would put that here, Cloud Clubs 23092023. That is my bucket in which I want to copy. And I am putting more information here, which is called recursive. Recursive. Recursive basically means that within this folder there are more subfolders, and I want everything to be copied in the same structure to Amazon S3. And now I have initiated this command. So instead of manually uploading one file at a time, what is happening now that multiple files are being uploaded into Amazon S3 bucket now. If you remember, we had only one file so far which we added manually, but now we have so many files being uploaded into this directory, which is called Cloud Clubs, and there is a shop.html, and within that there is a bootstrapper and all. So all this data has been hosted into this. If you remember, previously we had only one file, but if I now go and check what is available in my bucket, I would be seeing whole structure here. So idea is I could just initiate different methods of putting data into S3. It is purely up to my requirement that how I want to put the data and what type of data I want to put in. There is no limit on number of objects I can store. The same a limit which exists is about the size of the object. A single object, it cannot go. If I have a single object, it should be less than 5 terabyte. That is a limitation. So any object I am storing should be stored which has less than 5 TB capacity requirement. If it is beyond it, probably you have to break it down into smaller pieces and then upload it into S3. But 5 TB is still a big limit. I may have thousands of 5 TB object, no problem at all in storing this. So what I have done here, I have uploaded all these folders, and if you look here, this is a standard HTML file. You have some fonts, some images, some index file, some JavaScript running inside, and through that I should be able to host a static website. What is a static website? Let's try to understand that feature first, and then we'll implement it into S3. So we are referencing here and discussing about something called a static website. Static website is something where processing is not happening. Like, it is not a PHP file, it is not a Java based website. So maybe I hosted my application here, people would come here and then they would be getting some response, and in their browser they would be seeing. So this is my server here. On that server, I have started a web service, and on that web server I have hosted my HTML file. This server is running 24 by 7, and now when a user wants to connect to my website, they open browser, they connect to my website name, and then they are able to access and see the website which is being displayed to it. So request goes here, response is received by my browser, and now what may have we may have here, in this we may have some JavaScript, we may have some CSS file, cascaded style sheet, and these files can be executed on the browser. So they would use compute resources of the browser where they are running. They do not use server resources at the backend. Right. So that is what a static website is. Now, if we are not providing any processing here, so why we need to have a compute available here? No need for compute because I'm not doing processing. I just need someone who could receive the request which is coming up and provide a response. So what I could do, instead of having a 24 by 7 server running, I could host my data into an S3 bucket, store all the files I need, my HTML file, my CSS file, JavaScript file, images file, and now I would enable a feature on S3 which is called static website, And once the static website feature is available, now my users are able to access this website directly. So that is what we are going to do. Instead of running a server 24 by 7 and paying money for that, we just want to use a feature of Amazon S3 which would make it a static website. Okay. So hope this thing is clear. Let's keep on moving forward and we will then see how it is done. So for that, I need to define an entry point into my application or my website, and that index.html page is the entry point. So what I'm going to do here, I'll go to into properties of the bucket we created, and in this properties, I would at the bottom, I would find a feature which is called static website. I would edit it and I would say I want to use this feature. I am enabling it. Right. So I enabled it. I host a static website using it, and it says, okay, tell me who is your landing page, who is your index document. So that index document I already created called index.html. My error page is error.html, which I have created already, and that's what I want to refer to. So I'm pointing that S3 feature to index.html, and once I'm happy, I would say save changes, and now my changes has been saved. What it has done, it has given me a URL to connect to. See this? This is called static website URL. So you could copy this URL, and through this, I should be able to access my website. Probably it will fail right now because I do not have permission given to it. So this brings to another aspect of S3. By default, nothing is publicly available. Anything you store is only visible to you, no one else, unless you go ahead and make that public. So what I'm seeing here, I have enabled the feature. It is trying to access my website, Cloud Club, something, something, but I am getting forbidden because I have not enabled its access to anyone else. I have not made these content public. On the other hand, if I show you some websites, so let's pick up projects and I have a drag and drop exercise. So I go here and I have this one is see this URL. If you look here, this is being stored into an Amazon S3 bucket. How I can say that it is stored into Amazon S3 bucket? Let me check its URL. So this says HTTP AWS R quiz. This is a bucket name, S3 website, EU West 1, Amazon AWS.com. And if I go to my website I was trying to access, it is on the similar pattern. So let's see what is written here. So here the website name or the bucket name is Cloud Clubs. It is still N2 S3. It is in AP South 1, which is representation of Mumbai, whereas EU West 1 is representation of Ireland, and now I have Amazon AWS.com. So what I have done here, in this particular case, I have hosted this application into Amazon S3, which is a drag and drop exercise to complete AWS architecture. So you could drag and drop resources here and see if you have provided right response based on the requirement, submit, and then get everything done. So I provided all wrong responses, only these two were right responses. So this is again looks like a functioning website, but behind the scene it is nothing but index.html file which I am connecting to. So my object are right now not visible. Why? Because we have not enabled permission on it. So next thing we would be doing is to enable public access on the bucket. Now I'm showing it only for demo purpose. If you are handling someone's production data, you would probably would be never making a bucket public. I'm just showing it for a demo purpose. There are other ways which are beyond the discussion point for this particular session, but this is not a common practice. It is just for the sake of demo, I am making it public. So I go to permission, and here I see something called a bucket policy. Bucket policy is the mechanism which controls who is allowed and who is not allowed. So I could go ahead and currently I have no policy to display blank. Blank means disable every access. So I would now start enabling some access on that. So I could go ahead here and say, hey, I want to add some statement. So this is my bucket. Now, what AWS is doing, AWS offers every resource something called an ARN, Amazon Resource Name, like a unique identifier. So that unique identifier here is ARN, AWS S3, Cloud Clubs, and bucket name. So that is where I want to allow access. So I would be adding statement here. So I could add statement, and here it will give me a skeleton. And in that, I could say who I am allowing or who I am denying the access. So this is one example. I could type whatever required, and based on that, I should be able to get my application access given to that. If you do not want to write these things on your own, there is something called policy generator, and that will help you to create a policy automatically. So what I'm looking for, I am into policy generator and I am looking for a S3 bucket policy. What I want to perform, allow. Principal means who. I am saying here star. Star is representing everyone. Means I want to make it a public bucket, and that's why I am putting a principal as a star, which means everyone is being represented by this wildcard. What actions I want to perform? So here are multiple actions I could perform. I could delete object, I could get bucket. What I'm interested in is only one action, which is get object, which is representing read from the bucket or read that object. So I want to allow that get object. I selected one action for which resource. So that ARN I would put it here. If you remember the Amazon resource name, and now I say done, I am adding a statement and click on generate policy, and a policy has been created for you. Let me put it on notepad so you will understand what this policy is actually doing. So through this policy, this one says this is a policy ID to identify it. Version detail. Now this is not a version of this policy, it is a version of JSON interpreter who would be interpreting it. So whatever you create, it will always be showing 2012 because it is a JSON version which is being used to interpret it. Statement, this is where important aspects start. This is where we say one policy can have multiple statement, and this is the first statement in the policy. In this object, I'm saying action is get object means read, allow read on this bucket for everyone that is written into this policy. So I could go ahead and apply this policy to my bucket to make it public. Sorry, copy it, and then I'll go and paste it into my S3 policy generator here. I would get an error. I'll explain why would I even get an error. But as soon as I say save changes, it says API response and it says action does not apply to resource in the statement. What happened here? I said, hey, I want to get object. And here I not provided name of the object. Technically, it should be slash bucket name slash image dot png. Now it is a valid policy because the action is on an object and what I'm referencing is an object too. Or I could here say, I want to allow access only to index.html. So yes, I could do that. Then I want to add another file, I could add its name also here. But instead of adding multiple names, I could here use a wildcard and say slash star, which is representing the whole file cycle of my application. So what I could do now, I have just added this slash star at the end, and this has made it a valid policy. I'll go back here and edit this policy, replace it. Now I have slash star at the end, and now I say save changes, and hopefully now I would not get an error, and now it says successfully edited bucket policy. Hope this thing is clear. So my bucket is now publicly accessible, right? If I go back here into my forbidden, which I was getting before, if I was trying to access this cloud clubs bucket, now let me refresh it. Now I refresh it, and what happens now, index.html is coming up, and through that I am able to see the website directly coming up. And this whole animation type of thing which is happening, it is all happening through JavaScript. So what we did, we have just hosted a static website into S3. This is little good looking website, but you could set up any simple website also. Just create an index.html with just a basic name and put it here, should not be a problem. So idea is it is a very powerful service to perform lots of operation. Yes, it provides you a lot of ways to store your data, but it has a lot of facilities, like here we are using that S3 service to run as a static website. So now I may go ahead and add more information here, like I have menu options here. So I'm going to the menu option here. I may have different starter, I have different main dishes, drink, dessert. So I could have selected any of them to get started, and then keep on adding main functionality on that. So currently the website is being rendered by S3, but there is no backend processing it. So if I click on say, hey, I want to book a table, so there is no processing happening on the server side as of now. What I would need for that, I would need some mechanism to perform backend processing, and that is where I could add compute services if the need be, or I could have a Lambda function running behind the scene. So I hope this thing is clear that how I could create a small front end for my application using just Amazon S3 as a service. So I would stop here as part of my demo. Hopefully you are able to understand what is required to run this and how we would connect. I want to keep like 5 more minutes for any questions if anyone has. Otherwise, hope everyone was able to understand concept of what is a bucket, what is a S3 service, and how we can use it to store websites. Any questions, anyone so far? Anything which is not clear? Anything which is confusing you, let me know. All right, I'll wait 1 more minute in case somebody has a question. Otherwise, we will be then concluding the session. And I'll let what are some other use cases of S3, Abhishek? Good question. Let's talk about that. So see, basic sense, Abhishek, it is a storage, right? Now, you may use that storage into different mechanism. So main feature we are trying to solve from it is to store data. Now, once you have stored the data, what you could do now, you could perform various things on the data. What I showed you, I just hosted a static website on that. So that was one use case, right? Another use case could be to host your data lake on S3. So data lake is a logical concept in which you have huge amount of data, and that is what we store into Amazon S3. So you could create data lakes on Amazon S3 if you need to. Now, if you have files here, let's say you have a CSV file here, and now you want to run query on that. So you could write SQL queries, and those SQL query can be answered by Amazon S3 if the need be. So that is some of the use cases for S3. Then common use case, we would be preferring it for performing backup operation. So all my backup data, I may keep it into Amazon S3 if the need be. So because it is highly durable, it is allowing me to keep my data safe for longer period. So I would use it for backup period, backup option. Another use case I can have for S3 is for retention. What I could do, I could put, let's say I'm keeping an object. On that object I could say a policy, and on that policy I could say I don't want this object to be deleted before 5 years. Let's say there is a legal requirement like for banks or financial institute to keep data for longer period. So those policies can be associated with Amazon S3. So this policy would ensure nobody is allowed to keep this data removed, or nobody can remove it, and that would be retained for 5 years. So that is another use case I could use. The next use case I could have, maybe I have a compute service who is processing data, and after processing it is storing data into S3 and accessing it. So technically it is storage, and then on top of storage I could add additional functionality like SQL query support, backup support, retention, policy association, static website. Those are additional features I could leverage on S3, but behind the scene it is a storage service. Okay, hope that answers the question. Uh, let's see what else is there. What are some use cases we talked about? We talked about Nishant, clear. What is the main difference between Glacier and S3? Which is more useful for storage? Aditya, it depends. Now, why it depends? Because they both have use cases. Let me give you an example of Glacier as a service, or what we can use for Glacier for. Now, I'm not sure how the fridges are in India for some places now, or most of the thing. I will give you an example of a fridge. So when you buy a fridge, right, traditional refrigerator where you keep your food cool. So in fridge there would be a freezer, right, and there would be the main fridge area. Freezer is where the temperature would be below minus. Here temperature would be whatever you set to, right? Now they both have their use cases, isn't it? So if I'm having my vegetables and all, I would be keeping my vegetables here. I won't be keeping vegetables into freezer unless I want to freeze them. But if I have ice cream, I would be using ice cream and storing it into a freezer, otherwise it would melt on the fridge temperature. So that is the same thing. If I now I cannot directly, let's say I have frozen something, let's say I bought a cake and I have frozen it. We get cheesecake which you can freeze and unfreeze. So I've frozen a cheesecake into my freezer. I want to eat it. What I would need first, I would need to defreeze it for a while. Once it becomes into a soft state, then I can start consuming it. Otherwise, if I directly consume, it would be just ice which I would be eating. So idea here is that same thing has different use cases. Glacier is designed for long term archival. I want to keep my data for 5 years. I want to keep my data for 10 years. That time I would be using Glacier. So long term retention when you are using Glacier is a good choice. And when you have to access your data again and again, then S3 standard is a good choice for you. Another example to explain you the same concept, right? So like currently we are having summer into UK. So in summer I do not need heavy jackets to cover myself when I go out. So I still have my jackets, but what I've done, so my wardrobe is this, and in this wardrobe I have right now kept all my summer clothing, all my shirt, pants, and maybe hat and sunglasses and all. So all my summer clothing is already here, t-shirts and all. And my winter clothes I have kept into a different wardrobe which I do not regularly open. But when winter comes, what I would be needing, I cannot wear a t-shirt and out. So what I would need my winter clothes. So I would bring it back from Glacier. It was frozen. From frozen, I bought it here, and then it would be populated in my wardrobe. So Glacier is for long-term retention. When you want to keep data for longer period, Glacier would be a better choice. But if you are trying to keep data for frequent access, that would be Amazon S3, which you would be using. Glacier is a service in independently, and Glacier is a tier within Amazon S3 also. So depends, you can directly use Glacier, or you could say I would use Amazon S3, and after 90 days or 100 days I would move my data to Glacier. So that is also use case possible. So I hope this thing is clear. Any more questions, any doubts, any confusions? All right. So I hope you enjoyed and you have learned something. So a little bit of feedback to your cloud clubs would help. So let them know what kind of session you would like to see next and what topic you want to discuss, and then they can reach out to different guests and then help you in learning. So leverage this benefit cloud clubs. It is very easy. I remember my own learning. We did not had lot of ways to learn, but now it has become so much easier. So please leverage as much as you can about your cloud club. Shall we integrate Glacier or S3 together? It is, you do not integrate Aditya, it is automatically integrated. So I could explain it through an example here. Give me a minute, I will do that. So let's say this is my Amazon S3 bucket. Now, in this bucket, I have stored object 1 and I have object 2. Now, within S3, there are tier which is called standard tier. And within S3, there is a tier which is called glacier tier. What I could do, I could say, hey, as soon as my object comes for the 30 days, I would be keeping it into standard because people would be using it. And then I can say after 30 days, it would be moved to Glacier, and in Glacier, it would be kept for next 700 days, like you archived it, right? So what you are now, let's say you have newspaper coming to your home, right? So what you do that your maybe today's newspaper, maybe tomorrow's newspaper, sorry, not tomorrow, yesterday's newspaper and today's newspaper is stored into your dining table or into your reading room. and what all others are, they are still newspaper, but you would be keeping it into some other places. So same thing, you may keep your current data into S3 standard, and any data which you do not need but you want to still archive it, keep for longer period, then you would be moving it into Glacier. So it depends. They both are tiers or storage locations of S3. So S3 bucket can store some data into standard based on you define, and in move into Glacier based on you define. So it is purely up to you. Okay. Any more questions? Any doubts? Any confusions? Thank you, Divya. Thanks for the feedback. Thank you, Shivam. So I'll take one more question in the interest of time if somebody has. Otherwise, we can wrap it up. So I'll be willing to take one more question. And if you have a question afterward, feel free to reach out to me on my LinkedIn or reach out to a Cloud Club captain, and they could relay the question to me. Should not be an issue. All right. I hope there are no more questions. So Anushka and Abhishek, I hope everything is clear and you got a better understanding and your Cloud Cup participant got a better understanding. And if you have any feedback, any suggestion for future sessions, so feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashish, for joining us today. And I hope students got the insight into AWS and the S3 bucket. And hence, now we can all host our portfolios and our website on S3 at least.
Exactly.
Student can
Why
have
not?
hands on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. So thank you
Thank you
so
so much,
much.
sir. We are so grateful to you for joining us on such a short notice and helping us out with getting started with things on AWS. So, really
Happy
grateful
to
to
be
you.
here.
Thanks.
Always happy to help students. So anything which I can help you with, feel free to reach out. And all the best in your cloud journey. I hope you will learn a lot of things and will get a better career start with cloud. So all the best and have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Uh, Anushka, can you share your screen, please?
Yeah, sure. Just a second. So, guys, we have got something for you.
Yeah. So for everyone who followed along, Mr. Ashish, we have something in back for you. You can claim your certificates and yeah, just wait for a second. Yeah, you just have to quickly scan this form and let us know when you're done with it. So, I think this form will be available till midnight, and you can fill this form at your ease whenever you are comfortable and available. So you can just click a picture right now and fill it up later as well. And this is the feedback form. Make sure you fill it so we can have our feedback and we know that what we can provide you better next time. So it will be beneficial for us as well to provide something good and better to you. So, and I think people have scanned it. And if you want to join any of our clubs interested in knowing what we are going to do in the future, so please scan these QR codes and you can connect to our club for future AWS events because we are going to make sure that you will have a lot of AWS events and yeah, like hands-on sessions just like we had today. So yeah, make sure to join us.
And guys, I've shared all the links to the socials of our clubs and also the LinkedIn handle of our speaker. So please feel free to connect with him. And as promised, we've got like freebies for you. And for that, all you need to do is just post whatever you have learned from today's session, whatever you liked, and whatever you would like people to know about what happened today on your socials. Tag us, and we will be selecting out a few posts out of them. And we have surprise freebies for you guys. So stay tuned for that.
And
I hope
yeah, I
that's
hope
everyone.
we are done here. So, thank you everyone for joining us today. It was a great session, and yeah, thank you Sapnil for joining us as well. So, I hope you enjoyed the session and learned something new over here. And see you soon in the future sessions. Thank you.
So yeah, I guess we should end the stream now. Thank you so much for connecting with us today, guys. It was great having such a lovely and interactive audience, and we look forward to having you in future events as well. So take care, everyone. Bye bye. Good night.
Goodbye. Good night.